So today we're going to start off today's lesson in, I guess, a slightly unorthodox way. What we're going to do is I'm going to start with you writing a short narrative for me. And in this narrative, I just want you to take a couple minutes and describe a really happy or sad time of your life, a moment in your life in which you experienced a lot of emotions, and which is, kind of a strong memory inside of your memory to this day. So if you could do that, that's how I'd like to start the lesson, and then we'll move on. I'll tell you the purpose of this. So why don't you take 2 or 3 minutes and go ahead and write that narrative. Okay. Now I'm going to read it back to you, and you're going to listen, all right?
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Are you gonna read it out loud?
I am going to read it out loud, and then we're going to talk a little more about a different subject, and then we'll come back to the narrative, okay? Okay. It says, I was living in California for 2 years. It was time for me to come back to Rexburg. I had 2 choices, going back to Honduras and probably not having the chance to come back to finish college because it was too expensive to travel again to the United States. The second option was to come back to Rexburg and not see my parents for another couple of years. I felt the need to come back to Rexburg and finish college and maybe see my parents after finishing school. There was a lot of sadness knowing that I was not going to see them. However, when I arrived at the airport in Utah, I had the opportunity to see my parents for the first time in 7 years. It was a surprise that my family had for me. Excellent. Okay, now we're going to watch a short clip like we did in the last lesson from one of my favorite movies, from the Dead Poets Society, and he's going to talk a little bit about word choice. Now listen, and we might watch it twice because it's a very short clip.
Okay.
So listen up.
I just have to listen to it?
You just have to listen. Okay. We're going to put the volume all the way up.
Man's very tired. He is exhausted. Don't be very sad. You, come on, Mr. Overstreet, you twerp. Morose? Exactly, morose. Now, language was developed for one endeavor, and that is, Mr. Anderson, are you a man or an amoeba? Very. To communicate. No.
Okay, so what did you understand from that little clip? Or do you want to watch it again? You want to watch it again? Okay, so let's pay really close attention.
Man's not very tired. He is exhausted. Don't be.
So did you hear what he said there? The man is not very tired.
He's exhausted.
He's exhausted.
Very sad. You, come on, Mr.
The man's
Overstreet,
not
you
very
twerp.
sad.
Used?
Exactly, morose.
So he said,
Morose.
it's another word for sad. It's a synonym of
So
sad.
he's sad?
Well, no, he said a man is not sad. He is
Sad.
morose.
Morose. And what's morose?
A synonym of sad.
Well, he's sad then.
Right, but it's a synonym.
Language was developed for one endeavor,
And
and
then he asked them, language wasn't developed for one endeavor. Why was language developed?
that is, Mr. Anderson,
And he asked
are
him,
you a man or an amoeba?
why was language developed?
Very. To communicate. No.
To communicate.
He says no.
And he says no. And then what would it be? So he says to communicate, and he says no. To woo women. Can you guess maybe from the context what the word woo might mean?
To attract.
Exactly. To attract
Attract women.
and impress women. So what is the impression you got from this scene in the movie, The Dead Poets Society?
What impression I got?
Yeah.
That they're learning about poetry.
Right. But what message do you feel like the teacher's trying to communicate to the students?
Through poetry you can express your feelings.
Right.
Maybe.
And should you just use the same words all the time?
No, you have to have a variety of words.
Right. And sometimes the best words are the words that are not so commonly used, right? Okay, so today we're going to talk about synonyms and how we can really increase our vernacular with the use of synonyms, and also how we can add variety and style into our writing through the use of synonyms.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought we would do a little activity first. Let's look up the word sad. Well, let's think of a word. What's an adjective you could think of, and then we're going to look up its synonyms.
An adjective?
Yeah.
Complicated.
Complicated. Okay, go ahead.
So we're going to
look it up in Google, and when you usually type in a word in Google, it'll give you its definition and its synonyms also. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, if you type in definition, then it'll come up. Okay, so what's the definition for complicated?
Consisting of many interconnecting parts of elements, intricate.
Yeah. So something that's, might have a lot of parts, might be a little difficult to understand. And even in the definition, it gives a synonym for complicated would be intricate.
Intricate.
So what are some of the other synonyms of complicated?
Complex.
Okay, so it's basically this
Involved.
intricate,
Tangled.
convoluted,
Convoluted.
tricky,
Tricky.
thorny, labyrinthine, torturous. But so do synonyms always have the exact same definition as the word you're trying to find the synonym for?
The same definition?
Yeah,
It has something in common,
but they vary, right?
yeah.
So let's take, for example, the word complicated, many interconnecting parts. But do you think tricky has the same definition as complicated? So let's look up the definition of tricky. What does it say?
Requiring care and skill because difficult or awkward.
Mm-hmm. So tricky is slightly different because something that's kind of tricky requires your attention, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It can just be kind of awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, writing down a narrative. It's not that it's hard, it just can be tricky because it's awkward.
Mm-hmm.
So, I want to do another example really fast. Let's look up sad. There are so many synonyms for sad, but they have so many different definitions, but all of them could probably be used in place of sad. Can you give me an example of a sentence in which you would probably use the word sad?
I'm sad because I got a bad grade.
Okay, now let's find a word that we can use in place of sad to spice up your English a little bit. So look at these words, and then try and find a word on this list that you can use instead of sad. Look at it well. I want a good one.
I'm down.
I'm down because I got a bad grade on my. So say it with passion now.
I'm down because I got a bad grade.
Okay, let me find a word now.
I'm happy.
Okay. Glum. I'm very glum because I got a bad grade on my test. Now let's look up what glum means. Looking or feeling dejected, morose. So I look like I'm sad, and I feel like I'm sad. So I'm just all around sad. So glum's a great word to substitute instead of sad. So let's take another word and let's try to find a great substitute word for it. Give me another sentence with just a common adjective.
I'm worried.
Okay. And why are you worried?
I'm worried because I need to pay my bills.
Okay, now type in worried, definition of worried, and then try and find a really good synonym substitute.
I'm panicking.
Oh, so you did the verb, so you might want to do
Oh,
worried.
yeah. Anxious and trouble about potential problems. I'm anxious. I'm very anxious because I have to pay my bills.
You could say that you're perturbed by the fact that you have to pay your bills, right? Okay, so do you kind of get it? Do you see how you can use synonyms to really enhance your writing and even your daily speech to better communicate your ideas and also to give style to your language? Now, as our last activity to kind of wrap up this lesson, kind of increase your vocabulary today, I want you to go through your narrative and I want you to pick out 2 or 3 words and I want you to replace them with a good synonym.
2 or 3?
Yeah, 2 or 3. And try, usually, especially with the adjectives are one of the best things to find and replace, So if you saw like sad in there, or worried, 2 years. Okay, good. Now let's read it. I had my life in California for 2 years. It was time for me to come back to Rexburg. That sounds awesome. I had 2 choices. Go back to Honduras and probably not have the chance to come back to complete college because it was too expensive to travel to the United States. Or the second option was to come back to Rexburg and not see my parents for another couple of years. I felt the need to come back to Rexburg and finish college, and maybe see my parents after finishing school. There was a lot of sadness knowing that I was not going to see them. However, when I arrived to the airport in Utah, I had the opportunity to see my parents for the first time after 7 years. It was a shock that my family was there to see me. That's awesome. So, that's the conclusion of today's lesson. Tell me, what do you think you got from this lesson?
That I could use synonyms to in my writing. So I think if I use synonyms, my writing could be more interesting for readers. And it can sound smoother,
You can say
better,
smoother, helps
smoother.
better, yeah. Good. Well, thank you for coming to today's class. I appreciate it.